So first, I just want to thank everyone for being here today. And I'd like to introduce uh, Brin DaleyKeyser, alumnus of 2017. She is, you were a finance major, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Um, and this is part of our new series called Cardinal Chats. This event will be ongoing throughout the semester. Bryn is actually our first Cardinal Chats participant, so we're really excited to have her with us today. And we'll be doing one a month. At the end, I'll kind of go through the schedule so you can kind of see what that looks like. But what this basically is what we would call in our office an informational interview. So I work in the Career Development Center. My name is Morgan Pellerin. I'm the assistant director there. I actually worked with Bryn when she was a student here. So it's really cool to see her, how she's progressed. And what I'm going to do now is kind of model what an informational interview is like. We encourage students to do informational interviews. They're basically conversations that are with someone who is in a career path that you're interested in. So what I'm going to do in the next few minutes is kind of model what that looks like, ask Bryn some questions that I think you probably have on your mind. And then at the end, I'm going to open it up for any of you who want to ask Bryn a question as well. So with that, without any further ado, I'm going to go in, Bryn, and just kind of start with the questions if that works for you.
Sounds good.
Thank you. And thanks again for being here and taking some time out of your day to talk with us today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And for the students, I did reference that Bergie would be here to say hi. Well, Bergie's here. Bergie's excited to see you all. And if you read that email at the very end, I put a plug in that you get to see Bergie. So I wasn't lying. Bergie's here. So Bryn, I guess if we could start off, just share like your current position and what you do in that role.
Yeah, absolutely. So I work at it's called a full service marketing agency in Saratoga Springs. It's called Finger Paint. And much like the name, it is a very creative based company. We're a pharmaceutical specific marketing company. So we do anything from when you guys see like ads on TV for a specific drug, that's something that we do, to when you're in the doctor's office and you see a pamphlet on, sitting next to you on the shelf, that's also something that we design. So that's where the full service marketing agency comes from. We do anything from advertising down to digital print. Specifically in the company, I'm a financial analyst on the client-facing side, the client being the pharmaceutical companies. So what I do, I work in Saratoga, but actually all of my clients are from right outside of Philadelphia in a place called Conshohocken. So I work with all of the teams in Conshohocken, Pennsylvania, and their pharmaceutical clients. And I work on business forecasting for the entire company, specifically with the Conshohocken office, but also how it fits into our business. And I work to help manage money between each client. So I manage roughly, I think, $25 million. We're a smaller company compared to some of the bigger pharma agencies, but actually in the last 13 years, we've grown quite large. So just to put numbers on it, in the last 6 months, which is just COVID, we've hired over 100 people just in our office. So it's a pretty great company to work for, but it's also really nice to show how much growth there is. So again, I kind of, when you hear the word financial analyst, a lot of times you think of working like with clients one-on-one and helping manage their money. And it's the same sort of concept, but I just do it with larger companies and those being clients. So it's really cool.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that sounds pretty fun. So what about your work would you find most rewarding, like on a day-to-day basis?
So so we work with pharmaceutical companies, and kind of like I mentioned, a lot of the work we do can be seen whether you're watching TV or you walk into a doctor's office. So I, of course, being a financial analyst, I'm not one of the art members of our company that actually make the product. However, I'm behind the scenes helping make sure that the product gets out onto the market. And it's super cool when I'm watching TV or watching Sunday Night Football, and a commercial flashes across the screen that's one of my clients. So it's pretty awesome to be, just sitting in everyday life and out of nowhere, it's like, oh, there it is. Like, that's what I do. Like, that's why I do it. So that aspect is pretty cool. Rewarding in another sense, though, which isn't so like, towards me, the company itself, we pride ourselves on being people first. So they really own in on the fact that it's a reward to, not like a reward to like that you have a job, but like they want you to feel rewarded every single day. So they are very good about making sure that the culture of our business is really good, and that when you walk in, it's more like a family feel and like a really nice environment, opposed to it being like this like corporate office, which I had worked in previously, but it's really rewarding now to be in this type of business and seeing what that actually feels like. And a lot of times I think that you might hear like, oh yeah, we're like all about like making sure you're comfortable and making sure that things are good. But at Finger Paint, they really do anything that they can to make sure that the culture of our business is good and you have everything that you can be like successful as a person, because that should come first before work. And then it makes you just want to work that much harder. So it's rewarding to be there every day just because of that and how they've instilled that into their culture.
Nice. So yeah, that kind of leads to a question I kind of had just knowing you a little bit. And it's, I think, something when I'm working with some students, it can be a struggling point for them of, you hear finance, for example, you might have this like image in your head of what I think of like corporate boardroom or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And finding an environment, like I try to help students at times try to understand that you might be able to find an environment that better suits your personality. Like, particularly in a field like yours where it's really broad, you could go in a lot of directions. Um, I know you referenced before you kind of worked in a different environment. Like, how was that transition to finding the right kind of fit for you, if you will? Or
So like what you just said, I think, and this is no fault of anyone, this is kind of like when I was a senior, when you're a finance major, like you automatically think like the glamour of it all, like Wall Street in New York City or State Street in Boston. And like, that's always kind of like the goal and the dream. And I had applied to a couple of those places and unfortunately it just didn't work out. But what did work out, was I got a job offer at ACO, which is a subsidiary of Goldman Sachs. And that was located in Albany. So of course, like the glitz and the glam of being in New York, like that's what I really wanted. But I was like, you know what? Like this is a really great opportunity. And some of my professors helped me get it. And it was something that I was like super grateful for. And obviously, like you're saying, like as a senior, you're like, I need to have something in this world. So I thought, okay, subsidiary of Goldman Sachs, like this is great. This is, I'm going to move down to Albany and, this is going to be awesome. So I think that, what you learn in school and then once you put it into practical application, like there's two totally different worlds there. Unless you're going into more like of a higher education, like going on to get your master's or MBA or maybe into a PhD program where you can kind of roll off onto what you learned. Once you actually go out into the workforce, it's a totally different world. And until you actually step into that and feel what all those things I wanted to feel, like you're not going to know if it's the fit for you or not. So I started my finance trajectory at ACO and I was working on a service and trading floor. So I got my Series 7, I got my Series 63, I went through that whole thing. And the role that I was in, it was kind of a track to figure out if you wanted to become, like maybe the next step would be a financial advisor and working with clients, kind of like I was referencing before, one-on-one. And I felt, I met a lot of great people and there was a lot of people that like really wanted to be in that track and they were going to do anything that they could to, do the nitty gritty of anything just to make sure that that was their end goal. But I felt that my personality and like who I was, like that didn't match like my passions or anything. And again, like I didn't really, at that point, you still don't know exactly what it is you might want to do, but I knew it wasn't that. So that's when I started thinking, okay, maybe I want to, venture out. And that's when I stumbled upon finger paint and saw that it was more of it was a finance position, but more of a corporate finance position, kind of like what you learn in school, like the real practical application of what it is to run a business, how to forecast a business, like all those things that you actually learn in like Finance 355 and that kind of thing. And that's when I was like, okay, like I loved school. I want to be able to really like focus in on that and like, or not focus in on school, but like focus in on like what it was that I learned and get back to like what I love. And that's what kind of brought me over to finger paint. And with that, the culture being such a huge aspect of kind of making sure that my personality got to play in every day was huge. And it's like the breath of fresh air that I got after leaving ACO and moving into finger paint and just being able to little things like not having a dress code, or we have summer Fridays. So on Fridays we get to leave work early, and it's just like the little things that they allow you to do because they value your life a little bit more. It just makes you want to work that much harder, and it makes you that much more interested in the work. So I am not poo-pooing the other side of things. I mean, like I said, the really great part about starting out at ACO was I met so many people who I still keep in contact with today and are still connections for me if I ever wanted to do anything else, especially in the capital region. I mean, I went from Albany, now I'm in Saratoga. So and a lot of them are still at ACO and a lot of them have left. So it's a really, really great way to get your foot in the door and to figure out what it is you want to do. And whether it works out or not, at the end of the day, your first job may or may not be your forever thing, and that's okay if it's not. And with it, I still took a lot with me, and I'm happier where I am now because of it. So it's all worth it.
Great. Thank you. That was spot on. Thanks. Now we talk a lot about the good things. I'm curious about what you find particularly challenging about your job, and you could go whatever direction you kind of want with that.
So I think that a really challenging part about starting out in the workforce, I mean, since I graduated college, I've always wanted to go back to school. And I think it's because we're so used to school. I mean, literally since we were 4 years old up until we graduated college, all we know is school. And I knew that if I was going to stick to what I said, and I love finance, I wanted to try it out, it means I had to work. And because you don't really know what that feels like. Like, again, you've been in school your whole life. You have your main priority is always school. So it's in order to really figure out what you want to do, you got to go out there and figure it out. Unless you're on a track that's like very finite and you know that you have to go to school for this, that, and that. But the good thing with finance is that there's so much that you could do. So I wanted to tap into that. And I think that someone that, like myself, and I'm sure many of you, especially graduating college or wherever you are in your college career, we all have goals and dreams, and we all want them to happen now. And it's kind of frustrating when they don't happen exactly the way that you want them to. And that for me started out on day one. When I didn't get the job that I wanted, I had gone through 5 different interviews just to get this job down in New York City. When I didn't get that, I was like, okay, well, my plan's off. This is done. But then I got the job at ACO. So that kind of, came up and whatnot. And then I realized I don't really love ACO. But then finger paint came along. So it's like all these unexpected kind of turns in my path have happened, but I didn't plan for that. I had no idea any of that was going to happen. And with that, I think that a big struggle of someone at my age being 3 years out of school, having worked for 3 years, we're kind of in that point where we're, starting to get experienced. We're good at what we do. We're removed enough that we have that good experience and we could, go to the next level. But you're in that spot where you're kind of overqualified to do a couple different jobs, and then you might be too underqualified to like go to the next like maybe managerial level. So it's like just being at that spot that, of course, like we have goals and we want to have them tomorrow. It's kind of like getting through this part of your like mid-20s journey to get to that next level. And I think it kind of goes across in our generation that we all want like the best thing and we want it now. But when you're working, you really have to work through like the nitty gritty, and you really got to work hard, which is totally fine. You got to do it to get to what your goal is. But like I said from the beginning, it's like you have this plan, and then there's so many kinks in the road that you have no idea are going to happen until you go through it. And so it's just kind of getting through that and getting through like this part of like figuring it out, and then like getting really good at what you do, and then like you want to kind of move on to the next level, but like I'm only 25, I've only had 3 years of experience, and you might look at like a, you know, another position at my company and you need like X amount of years of experience, and it's like, but come on, like I could do it now, or whatever it may be. So it's like it's moving through these like weird twists and turns that you don't expect to happen. And I'd say that's probably the worst part, is like the unexpected. Yet it's also the best part, because again, I go back to ACO didn't work out. I didn't expect that to happen. But then finger paint came along, and like now finger paint's going pretty good. So it's like, who knows what my next turn's going to be, but it's like waiting for the unexpected to happen kind of thing. So
Okay. What I guess what I'm hearing there a lot is kind of just being open, I guess, to like
yeah,
the
exactly.
possibilities.
Exactly. And
How,
again, I mean, my sister is a nurse, so she kind of took actually a couple different routes to get to where she is, but she knew what she wanted to do, and then right after that you get to go into being a nurse. But with a finance degree, or maybe an English degree, or there's so many other things that you can do so many other things with, that especially someone that's not totally, you might have goals and you know you want to do something but you don't really know how to get there. It's like you got to kind of walk down the path and, you know, hit the couple signs that you weren't sure were going to be there, and that sort of thing.
well, that leads me to a couple questions that are maybe more specific to your field. Um, I think just thinking about maybe particularly like the, you know, your position like as a financial analyst, and maybe looking at both places you've worked, like what were the skills or traits that you felt like, whether in yourself or in others, you've observed that like allow for people to be successful in the field?
So of course, with any position, you have to have the training of whatever your position is. That's obvious. And one thing is that in school, you can go into a class and not know anything, but you have a book to read and it will tell you what to do. Or you have a professor that teaches and tells you what to do, or teaches you what the subject is. With a job, there's no book. There's no code, or there's no answers on the wall or under the desk that tells you what to do. You have to be patient and learn, because especially depending on the company that you're at, there's different protocols and different procedures that every single firm or company or organization is going to have, that you just have to learn. And kind of like being in school, like you listen and you learn. But you have to be patient, because it's a whole different type of learning. In terms of things that are, you know, have been that have carried over between positions, is, this sounds so silly, but especially when you're working with a lot of people, that I did at ACO and I do now, building relationships between people and being open and kind and like letting your personality come through is so important. Because again, having places like ACO where I now have left, like I still have connections there, that if I, you know, whether it would be I want to go and like grab a drink and have dinner with someone, like you have like your friends and like that personal aspect, but those also might be people that work other places now that you might want to work at, or it's, you know, someone that you might need a letter of reference or recommendation for whatever it may be. So it's, because not that I'm thinking of doing anything particular, but it's so good to just have those connections. One, because if you're building a new life for yourself somewhere else, it's really nice to have people both professionally and personally in your corner, because, you know, the more connections you make, the more that you're going to learn about. I mean, even with finger paint, it's just like, whether it be going on LinkedIn or just knowing people, that's how I heard about finger paint, was just through other people. So letting your personality come through and being kind and open, because who knows what the future might hold, super important. More so on the job level, organization is just absolutely everything, because again, the role that you're in, wherever it may be, the firm, the company, there's always going to be very minuscule, tiny details that are just outrageous and different, that are going to maybe cramp your style or put a, something in your day that's going to like make it mess up. But being organized and staying on top of everything, much like you would if you were in school and you need to stay on top of your homework, those things are the same. It's not the same in the sense that you need to study a little bit every day for the test. This is more so like, now you just have to be organized every single day to be successful at work, because being organized and making sure that you're on top of things will show the people that are above you, or maybe that are with you, that you're a good coworker, that you're responsible, you're reliable. And I think all of that comes from how organized you are and being able to perform your job efficiently and effectively.
Definitely. Yeah, that's key. Even in like work I do, you'll
Yeah,
kind of like,
totally.
who am I going to trust with this big project?
Yeah.
Like, you want to get those things, like,
And I
you
mean,
know,
that's not to say right now, if you look at my desktop for work, I mean, I have files all over the place, but like there's a routine that you get in where,
mhm.
you're not missing, due dates or assignments or meetings or whatever it is. It's, there's a lot that's built into your workday depending on, what it is. So it's definitely important to be organized and stay on top of things.
This is kind of thinking back maybe to when you were job searching, um, as a senior, when you were looking at positions, like what were the typical like entry level positions you were looking at, like maybe the job titles or the types of organizations, just knowing that some students might be at that point right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was lucky enough to go to school when these sort of circumstances weren't happening. So I had a lot of help from Dr. Gaber and connections through SUNY Plattsburgh. So, and I'm sure Dr. Gaber still does this because he's awesome and he's, willing to do anything for anybody. He's great. He helped me by me going in to see him. He helped me kind of pinpoint first a couple locations that I might have wanted to be at. And he also encouraged me. He actually encouraged me for the ACO application. Encouraged me to look outside my like goal box, which was like New York and Boston. And I had also gone on a couple of the trips. I don't know if anyone had done that in the past when we still could, to Boston, and met some of the SUNY Plattsburgh alumni that live in Boston. And that's kind of how I was able to talk about the different positions that were out there. I went to, whenever there was an alumni that came to the campus and they gave talks, I would always make sure I went to those just to at least have a name, hear like what the languages that they were saying, and just kind of hear the words that they were saying. Because again, the finance program, super awesome, like definitely prepares you for literally any route you want to go to. But again, like putting things into practical application is totally different than school. So it's nice to hear like that just kind of language that comes from someone that's working currently in that profession. So with all of that, I took help from Dr. Gaber in kind of pinpointing my locations and jobs. But when it came to me just looking myself, most of the things, I mean, literally just if you're doing it just on your own and looking online, typing in just like finance level 1 entry level, or like financial analyst, maybe like client facing, if that's something that you're looking into, or if you're wanting something more kind of like on the business side of things, I mean, you can type in business analyst. I mean, a lot of the companies that I was looking at were like the bigger names. So I applied to Grant Thornton, I applied to IBM, ACO, but I think that again, just having that mindset, like I need to have something like big and, that's flashy and whatever. There's still tons and tons of smaller firms, wherever you may be, whether it's you're staying in Plattsburgh or you're coming down here or going to New York. There's tons and tons and tons of small firms that operate in a smaller capacity than places like ACO or Grant Thornton, and they still hire the same sort of positions. Like, again, level 1 analyst, business analyst, financial analyst, client analyst, like things like that, if you're looking to be into that field. I mean, if you're wanting it to just show up like a huge search, I'm sure that just typing in like level 1 or analyst or something more broad can help narrow your search a bit too. But I think it's important to kind of look at a location and look at what they have there. If you know anybody in those areas, maybe ask around, say, hey, have you heard about this place? Or do you know anyone that works here? Or whatever it may be.
Well, that kind of leads into my next question, which is about networking.
Yeah.
Um, so, when I work with students, and sometimes networking has this, like, students kind of are hesitant about it.
Yeah.
I guess in your experience, how important has networking been in growing your career, and how do you recommend students start thinking about it now?
Yeah. So again, kind of to go back to, and I know this option really isn't available now given the circumstances, but um, when I was in school, networking with the alumni that would come on campus, often that Dr. Gaber would bring on, Dr. Christopherson also would help out with that. And especially now, like talking to your professors and asking them if there's anyone that they could put you in contact with, especially say you wanted to move down here. They do know anyone that works in Saratoga, like hi, me. But like doing it that way, going on LinkedIn, and maybe it's someone that you went to high school with that's going to a different college, and seeing even like what they're up to and like where they're applying. That sounds kind of silly, but I mean, it depends on like if you're like locality, like, putting all feelers out there. In terms of networking with people who are like me or other professionals, um, if there are any events that Plattsburgh State is hosting like virtually like this, I mean, super important to attend those and even just listening in. And I get it that it's kind of scary to like talk and ask questions or whatever, but there's no shame in sending an email or a chat or having, Morgan set you up with somebody or whatever it may be, whether it be me or someone else that's on one of these chats. Like, it's really important, even if what I'm saying and what I'm saying that the world that I work in, like, isn't interesting to you. Like, again, maybe you want to move to Saratoga, or maybe you want to move to New York. And it doesn't matter. Like, even just to talk to somebody about your options and like what it's like, that transition. I think it's important to talk to people, whether they be Plattsburgh State alumni or maybe your cousin that's their second year of work, and they might know somebody that's doing something that you want to do. It's really kind of like reaching out on all branches and really just kind of going for it, because you don't have anything to lose. There's no shame in reaching out to someone. People are always willing to help, and maybe if they don't have like an opportunity for you, or they can't help in the the questions that you have, I mean, 99% of the time that person's going to refer you to someone that can answer your question.
Yeah, that's key. I mean, I think the outreach part and just being open to wherever it leads, that's a big piece of it.
Mhm.
So thanks for sharing your experience there. Um, I think I probably have like one more question before I turn it over to students to see if they have any questions for you. Um, but I guess I know you were a student here. Reflecting back on your student experience, what do you feel like were things you did as a student that helped, like, it could be in the classroom, it could be out of the classroom, but things you felt helped you prepare for what came after college?
Sure. So I'm from Plattsburgh. So I originally actually went to SUNY Albany for a little bit and then didn't really love it. So I came back to Plattsburgh, and I didn't live at home, but I definitely went and did my laundry there every now and then. But I know that one thing for me is that if I was going to stay at home, I wanted to really make my experience as much of a college experience as it could be. And I did that for myself for sure. And part of that was being able to leave and like be away from home, which I knew I wanted to do after the fact, which is why now I'm in Saratoga. Um, but during college, and I'll talk about this and then I'll talk about something else, because I know that, again, this is something that like right now we can't do. But I was searching through my email one day, and there was a presentation that was put on by the Latin American Studies program, and it was for the Washington Internship Institute down in Washington, D.C. And I went and sat down, and I realized, I actually could graduate early. I had taken classes early on in high school that allowed me to graduate early if I wanted to. But what I did instead was my second semester of my junior year, I essentially took off school and I did an internship down in Washington, D.C. for credit, which was great, through this program. And it really taught me to, one, I got to, feel what it felt like to work and be away from home and be an adult and kind of, be in the big city and see how that felt. But it really taught me, like, again, like sitting in an office, like working every single day, just kind of like, again, being an adult, not being a student. And that was so beneficial. One, because yes, I wanted to, get out of Plattsburgh and go somewhere else to kind of prove to myself that, yeah, I can do it. And two, that after college, like I wanted to go back to work. I didn't want to go right into school again. And so I think that whether you do an internship part-time and whether it's virtual, I mean, now or whenever, I think definitely I recommend doing that because one, you're working with other people that you're not used to and that you don't know. And it's uncomfortable and it's weird, but that's what it's like when you start working. You start working with all these people that you've never met before and you have no idea who they are and you don't know how they act. And it's really important that you get that experience. So again, whether it's a virtual internship and it's only 10 hours a week, or if you have the ability to do more and you can, and I would totally suggest doing that because it's really, really beneficial when you take that next kind of weird, awkward step into something that's not your comfort zone. And then two, I would say something that I really am appreciative of is, and I've kind of mentioned this before, but just the connections that you have with your professors. And especially whether you're a freshman, a sophomore, junior, or senior, especially if you're a freshman, like the connections that you make, kind of like I'm saying, like with work, the connections that you make with your professors or your peers, or maybe someone that's the head of a club or whoever it may be, sports or anything, they are your mentors, and that's who you can learn a lot from, and also who can help you kind of figure out your path if it's something that you're unaware of, or maybe you're so sure of, and you then meet another professor and realize, oh, this is actually kind of cool. And with that, I'll also say with my finance degree, every single semester I always allotted one class to take completely outside of the SBE. So I remember my sophomore year, I think every semester up until like my junior year, I was taking a psychology class every semester. And then after that, I was like, I'm going to switch it over. And then I ended up taking a English writing class. So I learned how to write. And then my senior year, I took a philosophy course and that sort of thing. Again, just to kind of step outside your comfort zone and learn something new, because again, if you don't have the ability to do that with your schedule, I totally get how crazy it gets. But I think it's really important to just do something a little different because, taking a psychology course, like why would that apply to anything that we do in, corporate financial management? But believe it or not, that teaches you people skills. And when you go out into the workforce or whatever it is you may do, like that will carry over. And, you start, like I'm saying, you meet all these new people that you've never met before. And, maybe you took a personality course and you realize, oh my gosh, like this is everything I learned in my personality course. And this is what it means when people work this way. And in order to, be successful in work, like I have to do this or whatever it may be. Or maybe you take a English course and then you end up being in a role where you have to do research and write financial plans or something like that. And if you're a good writer because you took one course and everyone else in your cohort at work doesn't know how to write, like that gives you a leg up in the game kind of thing. So I guess my point at the end of the day is kind of stepping outside your comfort zone as much as you can in the capacity that you can, to make it a little bit easier when it comes to, working after school, because it is much, much different than just being in school.
Awesome. Thank you. So I'm gonna, let's see. So I can see that we have some folks here. Uh, I've kind of went through the questions I wanted to make sure we asked, but folks, feel free to use the chat function to let me know if you have any questions. I've done this before, and I will open it up if you want to ask. Like, I can allow you in the chat. Tell me if you want to have
First, and again, especially if you don't know exactly what you want to do, or maybe you do, and then you go work and then you realize this isn't really what I like. A lot, whether it be, an MBA program or a master's of finance or anything, I definitely would suggest working first to figure out the route that you want to do. And a lot of places that you work for might help pay for you to go to school. So like with ANCO, for example, if you went to SUNY Albany to get your MBA, they would pay for it pretty much for free. If you wanted to go to like a private school, like St. Rose or wherever, I think Siena has an MBA program now, they'll pay for like half sort of thing. But regardless, like, school's expensive. So, I mean, if you're coming out of undergrad in debt and wanting to put yourself in more debt, I mean, that's more power to you, but it's nice to have a paycheck at the end of the day and also experience. And it's even better if you can go to school for free. So in terms of importance, again, I know I keep saying this, but I think it depends on where you are. In my current position, I don't necessarily need a degree. If I wanted to get one, though, it could only help me. I think a lot of times it has to do with how much you get paid too. So you might, if you go and maybe like an accelerated MBA program and can have it done in a year, maybe your pay might be higher depending on where you go. But if that's the only reason you're doing it, then wait until it's something that you really want to do. I think, though, that in the world of business, there's so much opportunity that you can have for going to school and working. Like I said, I think it's important that you first kind of figure out what it is you want to do and then cross that bridge of getting a degree. It's never going to hurt you. It's always just going to help you. So.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Well, Brin, we're reaching a close. I want to show the students a few more things. But first, I just want to acknowledge and thank you for your time. I've gotten some chats in from the students saying thank you as well for your time.
Absolutely.
So know that we really appreciate it. And, I think it's helpful. I mean, I even learned some things today, too, that I'm taking away and going to be sharing with students. So, it's definitely time, at least for me, time well spent. Hopefully the feeling is mutual there. So again, we just want to, as a Cardinal, we want to thank you for helping your fellow Cardinals, who may be soon to be, leaving the nest, if you will. So I use that
such
pun.
an exciting time.
Yeah.
So much fun.